Welcome to the Communication Diva Podcast, episode 102. In this episode, Jen shares with you her list of 9 things to do in order to get and keep a job. I checked out the list, but it didn't seem all that relevant to me. You see, it doesn't include the way I got this job as the introductory voice for the podcast. So I'm adding my own 10th thing to do in order to get and keep a job. Be married to the boss.
Hello and welcome to the Communication Diva Podcast, the show that helps you to get the job, love your work, and advance your career through better communication. I'm Jen Swanson, and thank you very much for tuning in. I've been thinking lately about preparing and about getting ready. And as I record this, it's mid-November, and it's coming up to the season of Advent, which is all about getting ready. And then, of course, Christmas, which, there's a lot of things to get ready for Christmas for most people. And that's just coming way too fast, as it tends to do. But the kind of getting ready that I'm especially thinking about today has to do with ways that you can get ready at the beginning of a job search. When you're starting a job search and during a job search, there are things that you can do. And these are things that you might not have thought about. Maybe you have, but they might be things that you haven't thought about. I'm not going to be talking about cover letters and resumes today, although those are important ways to get ready. And if you want to know about resumes, I have a free online resume course to help you get ready for that. You can sign up for the email list through the website at communicationdiva.com, and the Resume Secrets course will be absolutely free. It's normally $99, but if you sign up for the email list, you get the course absolutely for free. So if you need to prepare a resume, that is there for you. But the resume is not the kind of getting ready that I'm talking about for today. The things that I want to talk about don't cost you anything but your time and some energy. You can do these things and you can get started on them the minute that you finish listening to me today. They don't involve, going anywhere either. So, one of them might, but we'll talk about that in a minute. So today I want to talk about the 9 things you need to know to get and to keep a job. And this material comes from a workshop that I've been sharing over the past year and a half in various places, in high schools, in libraries. I've been working with an organization called Sources BC, which is a government employment services organization, and I've been doing workshops in libraries in conjunction with people at this government agency. And often my audience for this topic has been teenagers and young adults, but I don't think it's only relevant to teenagers and young adults. In fact, if you're getting ready to look for a job, no matter what age you are, I think this information holds true. So let's dive right into it and let me share with you what the 9 things you need to do are in order to get a job and then to keep a job. So the first thing I want to talk about is industry awareness. And what do I mean by that? So first of all, what is the job you're applying for? And one of the things that I noticed in a resume that I was looking at when I was doing some work in an HR department is beverage dissemination officer. And I'm looking at this thinking, what the heck is that? What is a beverage dissemination officer? Anyway, I found out that it was a fancy schmancy term for a bartender. And I thought, oh, for heaven's sakes. So knowing what the job is in the first place would be a really good place to start. So research. Industry awareness means you need to do some research. What is the industry that you're applying to, and how do things work in that industry? What is this place that you are walking into? And you can do research before you ever get to the interview. And I suggest that you do. It's really important to know more than you need to know about the industry that you are entering into. And I don't mean just the skill set needed. So if this is a business that you can walk into, if it's a brick and mortar shop that you can walk into, then go walk into it. Get a sense of what it feels like. One of the things I say to the students is if it's a David's Tea or a Starbucks and you've never been into a David's Tea or a Starbucks, it would be really, really good for you to go and experience the atmosphere, order one of the drinks so that you know how that works, and sit there and watch for a little while and see, what the baristas are doing, what the people behind the counter are doing. Get a sense of the flavor of the place, and maybe try their products if it's a place that is something you can try or you can purchase. If it's not a place that you can just walk into, then the internet is an amazing thing. So take a look at what innovations and advances have been made in the industry that you're about to enter into. What are the issues? What are the struggles for this industry? You can find articles that have surfaced about the industry you're looking at. So regardless of what job it is that you are seeking, there will be information somewhere out there. So find that information and be able to talk about it with a little bit of knowledge, a little bit of background. And that alone will showcase your interest when you are in the interview process, that you have taken the time to do your research. I do want to tell you a little story about an interview that I was taking part in as one of the interviewers. It was to replace my position in the palliative care department of a hospital that I had worked at for a number of years. And I was leaving to go back to university to do my master's degree, and the manager asked if I would sit in on the interview because I had done the job for several years. And so I did, and I remember in the hospital system here, it's a union position that we were interviewing for, and there were several candidates. And this one woman came in, and there were a number of things that, and I can't visually do it for you, of course, because we're on audio here, but the first thing this first candidate did is she walked in with her coffee, which is a communication. It indicates that you are not being respectful and not really caring, which may not be true at all, but that is the communication that bringing your coffee in with you to an interview indicates. And she sort of plunked herself down in the chair and leaned back with an ankle crossed across her knee. And she hadn't said a word, and the manager and I sort of gave a sidelong glance at each other. And the interview kind of went downhill from there, partly because this person was so confident in her status in the union as far as what her seniority was, etc., that she figured she had this job in the bag, and unfortunately had done zero research on what palliative care actually was. And one of the questions the manager asked her was, tell me what you know about palliative care. And this person responded something like, oh, well, it's where you go to die. Which, okay, that's a piece of it, but there are a whole lot of other aspects to palliative care than that one. And this woman was unable to articulate any of those other aspects because I don't think she actually did any research whatsoever. Long story short, she did not get the job for a number of reasons, including suitability and I guess the right attitude. There were a number of reasons why she didn't get it. Somebody far more suitable got the job and is still doing that job today and is wonderful at it. But it was a very interesting process to sit through the interview and to really glaringly realize that this person had no idea about the role that she was applying for and the unit and what the whole specialty of palliative care was. So industry awareness, number one, highly important. Number two is self-motivation and initiative. Now, if you don't have a job yet, things that you can do to show your self-motivation and initiative, and again, everything you do from the minute you begin a job search to getting the job is a communication. And I can't say that enough. Every single thing you do, from the pieces of paper or the electronic files that you send, to the phone calls, to the emails, to what you wear to the interview, all of these things are communications, as is the action that you take. So if you don't have a job yet, you can show self-motivation and initiative by following up on resumes you've dropped off or that you've submitted or that you've sent, phoning leads that people give you, making appointments to speak with people and get to know them. There are many ways that you can show that you have initiative and self-motivation. So you're new in a job. That's another way. When you've got the job, how do you keep the job? One of the things you need to be doing is to show that you are self-motivated and initiative and have initiative. So one of the things not to do is to sit around being waiting to be told what to do next all day long. If you are brand new and you've got the job already, then it would be really important for you to say, okay, what do I need to do next? What can I learn? Take notes, ask really good questions, and record the answers so that you don't have to ask that same question 3 times. There are many ways that you can show that you've got initiative. Now, one of the things that drives me crazy is people will write these stock answers on resumes. I am a self-motivated team player, etc., etc. Well, you know what? Everybody is a self-motivated team player. Words are important, but in the end, your actions speak so much more loudly. So you might write that on your resume, but if you don't follow through and you don't prove it in all the other interactions that you have, then it really isn't worth the paper that it's written on, to use a cliche. So self-motivation and initiative, very important. Now, you don't need to know everything on day one of a new job. You're not going to. Learning anything is really hard work, but looking like you want to be there and that you want to learn will impress people, and that will go a long way to helping you keep that job once you have been successful in receiving it. So, industry awareness, number 1, self-motivation and initiative, number 2. Number 3 is confidence. Now, probably your confidence is not something that you're going to list in a job posting, but this is something that employers will value. And as long as you keep confidence in balance, as long as you're not overconfident and smug and arrogant about it, then a confidence is a really good tool to have, a really good skill to have. And you might not actually feel like you're confident when you're heading into a job interview or when you're heading into the whole process of a job search or even on day 1 of your new job. But if you can somehow muster up a little bit of confidence, even if you can fake it until you become it, as I've heard, then that will go a long way. Being really timid and really shy and really unsure of yourself is going to show as well. So the idea is to try and get a little bit of confidence in yourself and to celebrate the wins, to celebrate the things that you do succeed at as you work your way through. I was working in an emergency department. I was actually supervising a student who was working in an emergency department when I was teaching the Health Unit Coordinator program. And this one student had only been on her clinical experience for a couple of days, and things were not going well. And I was hearing comments from staff, and I was hearing things from other people. And I went and I watched for a little while. I watched the student in action. And what was happening was people would come up and ask her something or try to suggest something, and she'd say, yeah, I know that, I know. And it was coming across as her being, rude, and also as her knowing everything, like a know-it-all, being a know-it-all. And actually what was happening underneath all of that exterior facade that I found out later after taking her aside and asking her what was going on is that she was terrified that she was going to make a mistake. So her lack of confidence was actually manifesting itself as being overconfident and arrogant, and she had no idea that was how she was coming across. She was horrified when she found out that people were talking about her because she wasn't allowing anyone to correct her. She wasn't allowing anyone to help her. And so people were sort of just washing their hands of her, throwing their hands up and walking away because apparently she knew how to do everything already, even though she'd only been there for a couple of days. So after we had a really good conversation about that, she started over again and things ended up being better. But it was a lack of confidence in this student that was coming across as an overconfidence. And that was unfortunate. You know, when you're brand new at something, being vulnerable is okay. And an assertive move and a confident move is to say, you know what? I am brand new. I am going to make some mistakes. I would really appreciate you giving me some guidance. I would really appreciate it if I can ask you some questions so that I get this right. And if I do something wrong, I would really like to know about it so that I can fix it and make sure that I don't do that again. That kind of a statement is a really, really assertive statement. And it would, you know, if all new employees would do that, things would go a lot more smoothly. So don't worry about being super confident at first. In fact, it would not be good if you were super confident at first, you know, but have a little bit of confidence. You've got the skills because you were hired into this job. If you haven't got the exact skills, the person who hired you saw potential in the fact that you could learn these skills. So go with that. Be a little bit confident, but keep some humility in there as well as you go along. All right, number 4 is communication. And I think I've said this before. You can't have excellent communication skills at all times. It's absolutely, utterly impossible. Communication is a practice. Yes, we do it all the time, but hey, I'm the first to admit I screw it up regularly. and so does everyone. So communication is not something you can put on your resume as I have excellent communication skills and have that be true at all times. So I actually discourage that. I mean, strong communication skills, great. But if you put you are fantastic at communication or you are excellent or you have amazing communication skills, you're setting yourself up for being really wrong a lot of the time, because communication is not just talking with one another. It involves every single transaction in any type of format. So you want to be careful. You can show that you have fabulous communication skills, again, by how you follow up on those resumes, by the email formats and the words that you use when you send emails in communication with people to set up job interviews. You know, be careful how you correspond with the person who might be hiring you. I got a text from someone who was coming to one of my workshops. I had never met this person before, and the text I got was, "Hey!" ! What time is the workshop? It wasn't, "Hi, Jen." It wasn't, you know, it happened to be a church workshop. It wasn't, "Hi, Reverend." It was, "Hey!" ! I felt like I was being shouted at. And I'm sure that's not how it was meant. And maybe it was a generational thing, but it was surely unprofessional. And, you know, had it been a job interview thing, like, "Hey, what time is my job interview?" I would have formed an impression of this person. And so just be careful. Every single thing, whether it's a text, a phone call, a voicemail, an email, those are communications that can convey information to the person receiving them. And so you want to be careful. And I talk a lot more about that in the book that I wrote, which I'll talk about a bit later. Body language is a communication as well. So your body will communicate when you're sitting in an interview. And so the way you sit and the things that you bring with you are communication as well. So being careful with those, being careful with what you're dressed as, and the things that you bring in with you can speak more loudly than your words. I'll tell you one little story before I move on about my wonderful son, who is a trained actor and who was going to get in Canada, in British Columbia here, we have what's called a graduated license system for your driver's license. And you start off with an L, which is a little magnetic sign that sticks in the back of your car, meaning you're a learner, and there are certain restrictions around that. And then once you pass your learner's test, you graduate to what's called an N, or a new driver, and that has to be on the back of your car, and I believe it's something like 2 years. You have to have 2 years of driving experience before then you take a test and you are given your full license. And so he was going for his N exam to get his full license, and he told me that he dressed a certain way for his test. He made sure that he wore a shirt with a collar, and he made sure that he has a lip piercing. He made sure he took out his lip piercing, and he said, I want to make myself as non-confrontational and as friendly and outgoing as possible when I'm taking this driver's test. Now, I have no idea. I mean, you have to pass your driver's test on your skill set, of course, which he did. But I thought it was really fascinating that, actors think about these kinds of things, how you present yourself at all times as a communication, and that's what they're trained to do. And that's what he did for something like a driver's test. Right? So I thought that was really quite clever. Okay, number 5 is organizational skills. Now, we often have these listed on a resume, and it's something that you might have demonstrated in past jobs and that, but you will also be demonstrating your organizational skills again in every communication that you send, in what time you show up for an interview. If you're there late, then you're not very organized, and you're demonstrating that through your actions. So again, you can write things on a resume, but that is not the end of the story. People will get the impression of you if you show up, 5 or 10 minutes before with extra copies of your resume and your list of references and all these things in hand, and that you're dressed properly and you're ready to go when they're ready to go. That would show organization. When you're looking for a job, you can be organized by having a to-do list, by prioritizing what you're going to be doing each day to be able to get yourself a job, and by following up in a timely manner on things that you have done. So all of those things can be demonstrated rather than just written down on a resume. So organizational skills. Employers want you to have organizational skills. And so take a look at how well you think you are at that, and even ask friends and family members if they can give you some honest feedback, because there are many, many, many strategies out there, and there are many things that can help you to stay more organized, like apps on phones and on your computer screen that can remind you to do things if you're somebody who tends to forget. So there are ways you can help yourself be more organized if you're not the most organized person in the world. Okay, number 6, a team player attitude. Now, this is a huge cliche, but employers want you to have that regardless of whether or not it is a cliche. You can, this depends, of course, on the work, the kind of work that you're doing, but most of the time your job will involve other people in some capacity. So how is your attitude? Are you going in with competition in mind, or are you going in to help advance the entire team? And it's good to get that straight in your head before you get in there. And this has to do with emotional intelligence, which perhaps you've heard of. Playing well in the sandbox is actually far more important these days than any technical skills that you bring with you. Being able to get along with others and being able to do things for the good of the whole organization will serve you far better than I'm going to make it to the top and be king of the world, and don't care who I step on along the way. That's not going to go so well. You want to be able to get along with your colleagues and your coworkers. You won't get along with all of them, but in general, if you can demonstrate that you are willing and able to work with other people, that will take you far. And if you have trouble with that, there are ways to build teams. There's information, there are books, there are videos, there are all sorts of things. YouTube has all sorts of things on developing a team player attitude. So take a look at those if you don't have that yet. I'm thinking of actually developing something along those lines for the future. Number 7, stress management skills. So face it, you are going to be stressed, at least at first. And if you're not even a little bit stressed, then you might want to be curious about that and ask yourself why not, because maybe you're not bringing your full game to this new position. Once you settle into a job, it would be really good to keep your stress levels in check and to know yourself and your stress triggers well, because learning a new job is exhausting. And so for the first few weeks, first few months even, you might find that you don't have any energy, that you're really tired, because brain work is really hard work. So looking after yourself, making sure you sleep well and you eat well and you get a little exercise and you get a little downtime is an important part of managing your stress at the beginning of a new job. Also, some of the work that you might be doing might be in a very stressful environment. I tell the students, have you ever seen somebody working in a drive-through? That's got to be super stressful. Any kind of serving customer work where you have to be fast-paced and in a hurry and thinking on your feet can be stressful. Students going into the hospital, the work that I did for years, that was really stressful because people could come up and ask them any kind of question. You had no control over that. Answering the phone in different jobs, you have no idea what's going to be on the other end of that phone. So there's lots of stress. And there's also the stress of worrying about whether or not you're going to make a mistake. And to get it out of the way now, yes, you're going to make mistakes. Hopefully they won't be massive, mistakes that have a huge impact. But you will be making mistakes. That's the whole part of learning. So how are you going to manage your own stress? What are you going to do to keep that in check and to give yourself a bit of a break? And I think I said this before, but how are you going to celebrate the successes that you have as you go along? And as you learn this new position. Okay, number 8 is problem-solving skills. Employers love you to have these. It saves them time and effort and money if employees can handle minor issues that arise without running to the management every 5 minutes. So being able to take initiative, being able to use your best boat building and nunchuck skills, to use a really obscure movie reference, and a little creativity, and you will be more independent and you will be trusted sooner in the organization if you are able to, within the boundaries of your role, make some decisions and use your autonomy to come up with solutions to some of the problems that are presented. This ties really in closely with the team player, being a team player. What are some of the things that you can do that solve problems? Minor things that can be solved by your creativity and your skill set. So problem-solving skills are important in this. And the last thing are leadership skills. You can be, this is number 9, you can be a leader in any kind of a job. I actually did a whole 90-minute workshop in Seattle this past summer with, I think it was 90 minutes. Anyway, I had 90 people there from the healthcare industry from all over the U.S., Canada, and Abu Dhabi, of all places. And I did a workshop about being a leader in any role that you're in. And leadership is more of an attitude than a role assignment. So being responsible for your own stuff, being able to do your job as well as you can at any given moment, learning more than you need to know about the work that you are doing. There might be training opportunities in your new job that you can ask management about. You might be able to take on projects in which you will learn a whole lot of stuff in your job. There are ways to be leaders. There are ways to be a leader in any job that you are in, regardless of what that is. And in the book, I tell a story about a man named Miguel, and Miguel is a hot dog salesman. And I'm telling this story because in many ways, Miguel is an inspiration and is a leader. And I'm not going to spoil that story for you, but if you get a chance to pick up a copy of the book, it's in there. And Miguel is just an amazing person. And anybody who lives in my town and who frequents the store that he works outside of knows Miguel. And so it's kind of a fun story. So leadership skills, and you can develop those. And there's all sorts of information out there on how to become a leader. Employers love to have leaders because then they can hand over some of the things that they don't need to worry about anymore to trusted employees. So that is something to aspire to once you have a job. And also to think of examples of when you provided leadership in some of your other jobs, because in the job search process, during an interview, that's a question that you might be asked. Where in your former work experience or in your life have you shown leadership? Have an answer for that before you ever get into the interview. Just think about where in your life, and it doesn't even have to be in a workplace setting, where did you take over and show leadership in a situation that you can use as an example if you get asked that question during an interview. All right, so none of these things is costly except for the cost of your time and your energy to work on these skills, to develop these skills. And none of this is meant to homogenize you or to turn you into some kind of robot exactly like the rest. So the book that I wrote, What They See, How to Stand Out and Shine in Your New Job, I talk about not wanting to make you into exactly the same as every other employee out there. I talk about bringing your skills and your experiences and the unique gifts that are yours to your job, and then bringing those forward in a way that helps you to step up and to shine. And so that is what I'm hoping you will have learned from the 9 things that you need to know to get and to keep a job. So having these 9 things, which always can be improved upon after you've got the job and well after you've got the job, these will be a definite asset in your job search and in job retention once you've been hired. So I'll just go over them one more time so that we've got them: industry awareness, self-motivation and initiative, confidence, communication, organizational skills, a team player attitude, stress management skills, problem-solving skills, and a sense of leadership. And I'd be interested to know what other skills you would add to this list. What are some other skills that you might think about that you might add to this list that don't cost anything, again, except a little effort on your part? So that's my show for today. I'm always happy to hear from you. If you enjoyed this episode, I would ask you to please go over to iTunes, to the Communication Diva podcast, and leave a review. Because the more reviews we get, the more people will find the podcast and the more people will benefit from the information that I'm sharing with you. So I'm Jen Swanson. I am grateful that you tuned in. Thank you so much for being part of this audience. And until next time, please know that you can stand out and shine.